on the eve of the 2011 Pilot Training Reform Symposium. The background here is some of the most talented, passionate, and committed flight training experts, instructors, and educators in the entire world. We really have the cream of the crop here. Some months ago, a number of folks in the flight training industry realized that we weren't quite being as effective as we needed to be, that aviation was in trouble, and that if aviation was going to save itself, it had to start first with the most fundamental aspects of aviation, and that is how we train these people, who trains them, and what is trained in the long term. How do we teach pilots to fly and to survive? So for the next 48 hours here in Atlanta, over 100 of the best flight training experts and educators in the country are going to get together, propose real change, real ideas, be aggressive about it, and for the first time in a number of years anyway, we're really going to have a chance to see people think creatively, out of the box, and without limits. Because around here, the sky's no limit at all. So let's take a look at what happens from here on out at the 2011 Pilot Training Reform Symposium. Jim, it's the eve of the Pilot Training Reform Symposium. There's a tremendous amount of anticipation from the folks who, by and large, have paid their own freight to be here. This is the cream of the crop in the flight training industry. Folks are deeply committed, deeply passionate about the industry, and with great expectations for what might happen in the next 48 hours. What are yours?
Well, my expectation, my genuine hope is that we'll be able to come to a consensus about the things that are really killing people in airplanes and causing problems with accidents. What I plan to bring tomorrow is a little explanation of how things have not changed very much, that we're killing people for many of the same reasons and hurting people for so many of the same causes that we did 25 years ago when I got into this business. And we also want to see us have a cultural change. I think at the end of the day, what matters here is not so much what pilots know and don't know, but what they care about. And I hope we'll address that tomorrow sometime.
Well, the anticipation is to have a good meeting, a lot of interaction with the people, especially during our breakout sessions on the second day. And as Bob Wright mentioned during the panelist debriefing earlier, the symposium is really only the beginning. All the real work for change comes afterwards.
Well, as a flight school owner, we've been talking about some of these very issues that we're going to be talking about here. So as an owner, what I'm here to hopefully be able to help and just try to find ways to improve upon what we're already doing. Seems like there's some big holes, and it would be nice to come up with some ideas on how to better do things to, number one, retain our students when they come. You know, why do they quit flying, or they quit their training, why, and what can we do better? So that's really about it for now.
If you own a Cirrus today, or if you are considering the purchase of a new or used aircraft, consider this. Aviation, in conjunction with the country's leading Cirrus sales and maintenance facilities, has launched the G3R9 program that combines the purchase of a late-model, low-time Cirrus aircraft and the addition of the Aviation Integra Release 9 avionics suite for much less than you may have thought, and certainly much less than purchasing a brand new aircraft. G3R9, combining the best airframe, best engine, and best avionics for the best value.
Well, everybody brings their own experiences and everything to something like this. They've got their own particular areas that they're passionate about, interested in, their own cross to bear, so to speak. What's yours?
Well, I think that I'm really interested, and I signed up for the documentation part of this, is like standardized syllabuses, and which we're Cessna Pilot Center, we already have that, but what I struggle with my instructors is there's a lot of different training materials out there, and people are using a lot of different things, and so I'm really interested in that part of it, different syllabuses and getting things so that it's more standardized and that we're all on the same page instead of using a whole bunch of different things.
So I think everyone has their pet project. Mine in particular is flight instructor effectiveness. And when I started out, I wanted to be a career flight instructor, and I got my master's degree in education, and my undergraduate minor is in flight education, and I thought, I'm going to do this. And I couldn't quite make a go of it because of the climate and the types of things that you needed to do. I didn't necessarily have the experience. And so one of the things that really fascinates me about flight training is how do we prepare flight instructors to be good teachers? How do we prepare them for the things that aren't in the books, like dealing with a student who won't study, or dealing with a student that hey, maybe has a learning disability and things like that. I mean, there's lots of challenges out there that you're not especially prepared for. And then the things about staying motivated. I mean, not everybody wants to be a career flight instructor, and that's okay. We don't discriminate. We need flight instructors out there, and it's okay to be building time. But while you're flight instructing, how can we motivate you to be the best instructor that you can be, to care about your student and make sure that you're a huge part of their success?
48 hours from now, when this whole thing winds down and everybody's had their say, what would it take for you to call it a success?
Well, I think they've done a great job of setting up an amazing foundation with the structure that they've set up for this event. You've got to give credit to SAFE, to Doug Stewart and Bob Wright for making sure that this event was well laid out. So they're improving the odds of success right now before we've even started. From there, what we've talked about doing with the presentations is really setting out, this is what we know right now, and these are the types of things we're thinking about, but I think the breakout sessions will really be key. And those discussions that are focused on those main areas and coming up with these 5 recommendations, they're keeping it very manageable. And then they have a plan for what we're going to do with these recommendations and a timeline. And those things are all very important to make sure we see some progress. One of the things I think that's going to be very challenging is I think this group of people here is going to come up with some phenomenal ideas and even some things that we've never heard before. People say there are no new ideas in aviation. I disagree. I hear new ideas, and I think that's great. The challenge is we're going to make these recommendations to these agencies or organizations or corporations, and what if they come back and say, we don't have the resources, financial or staff? And that to me is how we work through that process, how we get creative and say, well, that's the intent. Can we come up with a lower investment method to accomplish the same ends? I think that's where this group can really rise to that challenge.
I think a success would be a consensus within the industry that what we have been doing has not really accomplished a whole lot over the last few years, and that we need a genuine change in the approach to things, that we need to look into people's hearts, not just their heads, and to be grown-ups in the broadest sense of that word about our industry, and to see some genuine improvement in our safety as a result.
What I see is we come up with ideas, and then how do we implement it? So the progression is, I see we need to have some ideas, but we also have some ideas of how are we going to implement whatever we decide to do here today.
Well, I think what we'll need is to have our breakout groups really come up with very sound recommendations. As you might know, or as the viewers might know, the breakout groups are tasked with coming up with 5 recommendations, at a minimum 5 recommendations, and not only recommendations of things that need to be done, but who needs to do them and the timeline within which they need to be done. I hope that we can come out of this having achieved that and have the groups that are tasked with this accept that challenge, accept that responsibility, and let us all move forward.
I think I would call it a success if when Randy Babbitt listens to the report out from the recommendations that he just is stunned by how much ground we covered, and he makes a personal commitment that the FAA is going to take this seriously, and he assumes that everybody else will. I think that would be the best outcome.
Welcome to the Aero-News Network, the aviation world's most comprehensive news and information resource. Real-time 24/7 online audio and video programming, where aviation has been getting updated for over a decade. Distributing over 11,000 stories, features, audio, and video programs every year. Only ANN covers aviation and aerospace with this much depth, insight, and expertise. Check us out on the web at aero-news.net.
You mentioned this afternoon in the moderator's briefing that this was the teeniest, tiniest first step in the process. What does the process entail from here if we're going to be successful?
Well, if we just did this symposium and put the results in a report and put it on the shelf, it would be meaningless. So what's going to happen is we're going to transmit the recommendations from this symposium to the organizations that we think are best suited to implement them. Obviously, we'll include the FAA, but we'll include a lot of industry organizations too. And we think that by focusing on that and having these organizations accountable for it. In other words, we want you to do this by such and such a time and produce this product that can improve training, that will retain students, lower accidents. It will actually benefit the system rather than just having it sit on the shelf as a report.
first step in a long process, but a process that really is long overdue in people trying to address a lot of the different issues. And keep in mind that the people who are here pretty much on their own dime. They all recognize that there are problems, and if we don't come together and try to fix them, it does not bode well for aviation.
I think the most important thing on how we're going to make the change is to come to the understanding that we have to work together on this. There's not going to be any one hero coming out of this. Hopefully, we're going to leave this with a schedule of things to get done, different things assigned to those who are best prepared to do those things. But my real hope is that we're really going to come together this time for once and really all work together.
What's kept us from doing that up till now?
I think part of the problem is the fact that we're all pilots, and I think we'd both agree that being a pilot means that you're used to being in charge, and that kind of AAA mentality, not an A type, but a AAA type, and I think that mentality has spilled over into the organizations, and I'm even going to propose a new acronym. I haven't had time to put this PowerPoint slide together. I'm going to call it ARM, for Association Resource Management. And with the slide, I'd like to see this big arm with that strength that we're going to work together. I think what's kept it so far from happening is just this feeling that so many of the organizations have wanted to be the leader. If it's not my idea, if we didn't invent it, we don't want to do it. Exactly. And I would like to break that barrier down and create a true coalition.